Hello and welcome to part 2 of my review of the roof rack. I took it out and drove it tonight and got a pretty decent view of how bright these lights are. They are fairly bright. They're pretty bright. A lot brighter than the bumper, but that should be expected. There is 4 of them plus the 2 on the bumper, so it was very good illumination. If you've watched my video of the test of driving it, you'll notice I did slip off the rocks and it landed squarely on this roof rack and it didn't do any damage to it. It just made it a little dirty. So it's durable. It is all metal. It is fairly bright. Now it might not be as bright as those light bars that you can buy, but once again, this was $25, so about half the price of one of those light bars or so, at least from Hobbytown, USA, if I would have gone there and bought it to walk out the door that day. A recap. Basket was not square. Rack crooked to the basket. Bar bent. Short wires. The things I liked. I liked the mesh of the top, and I liked how it was a square holes in the bottom of the rack. I liked how the rack was metal, and I liked how it came with lights. With that said, I would most definitely pass on this for $24. This not being straight with the rack not being the rack not being squared up, and this bar right here that's supposed to attach to the roof being bent underneath of my rack. All of those are that's just way too much stuff wrong for the rack. I mean, if the selling point would have been the lights instead of the rack, could have lived with it, but the selling point is the rack and not the lights. So I would most definitely pass on this rack. Find yourself another rack if you like the style. I would still suggest try to find this style from just a different manufacturer than SkyQ. This one was just poorly done. The durability factor, like I said, I did roll it, smashed and didn't do any damage to it. I rolled it a couple more times before the videos, and actually I really didn't roll the truck. The truck rolled itself, and I'll explain here in a second after I say this is a pass. Just find something else. For $25 you can get a lot better than what this came. Now, about earlier when I said the truck crashed itself, I'm actually not kidding. This is a new servo. My old servo was having a short in it that was so bad it would actually screw up the receiver inside of the truck, and the truck would start turning the wheels on its own and driving on its own. So that was a fun and little interesting adventure there we had earlier today when we were just going out to drive it with the roof rack to see how the handling would be with the added weight of this roof rack, which it adds quite a bit more weight to this truck. So at first I thought it was my radio or my receiver, so I was really upset thinking, wow, it's going to be a long time before I can get that. Instead, I come home and I bring it back inside, take out this, or I just unplug this and I plug this guy back in. Truck starts working just fine. Absolutely no problems with it. Plug the old servo back in and press the gas, and everything seems like it wants to work for a second or two, and then the tires sporadically turn left and right. The truck just wildly goes forwards and into reverse until eventually the servo just totally freaked out and would slam either all the way right or all the way to the left and just freeze itself really bad. So I took that down to Hobbytown, USA, which at first they were thinking that the servo and my electronics didn't like each other until we were sitting there talking, and then they plugged in the servo to a controller and started testing it. At first it was working just fine and making me look like a complete lunatic when I was coming in there telling them that my truck is driving itself and that the servo is the cause, because when I plug this in, problem went away. Plug the other servo in, problem comes right back. About maybe 3 or 4 tests into it, he goes, uh-oh, there's something wrong. This servo is shorting out. It's not working no more. And the guy looks at him and goes, what do you mean? He goes, it's turning the receiver off. And he goes, how fresh are the batteries? They were brand new. So it was the servo. So they let me exchange it right there for this one, which was the exact same price, but this one just has a lot less power and is a lot shorter than my last one, as you can tell from these screws. The last one I had sat all the way out to here, where this one sits a lot further back into the truck. So interested to see how well this guy works. It's only a 111.1 ounces of torque. So be interesting to see if this is as good as the last one was, except for that short. So I hope this helps you in not making a bad roof rack purchase. And if your truck starts acting up after you put a new servo in it, highly unlikely you have a short in your servo, but it happened to me. So, but the nice thing is I did buy this at Hobbytown USA, so any problems, take it back, and instead of waiting a week or two, I can just exchange it for, could have swapped it out for the exact same size, but they didn't have any to walk out the door with, but this I could. So one of the reasons why I really like going into the store to buy some of my stuff versus like this I bought online, which if I would have bought this in the store, first off, I would have gotten to see it in the package, and I would have passed on it right then and there, just seeing how unsquare and bent this was. So a pass, and hopefully looking forward to showing you how this guy's going to run. Alright, you guys have a great night or a wonderful day, and happy crawling.